Hello guys, today we'll be constructing a tenor handle using the principle of tangency. As you see, we've drawn our horizontal line, the center line, and also we've drawn our vertical line. Now, you you from our diagram we're starting. So from our diagram here, we say from this distance to here is 36 millimeter. So pick with our meter rule 36 millimeter. So we've done that. We'll project the line a little just to indicate which is the center line. Yes. So now we have a radius here of 6 millimeter. From our meter rule, we'll take 6 millimeter using our compass. We have succeeded in doing this, taking it. So place it at this point here, and then we'll draw a cycle here, just semicircle. Yes, we've done that. So we'll move from here. You find out that a radius is actually touching this small radius here with 22 millimeters radius. So you pick 22 millimeter from your rule. We have succeeded in picking 22 millimeter from our rule. So bring it at this point here. Then we'll put a point at our vertical line. Then from that point we put, then we'll construct an arc this way. Now the next thing we'll do, from our diagram here, it says 56 millimeter upward. So we'll measure 56 millimeter. Then we'll put a point. We'll use our T-square. We'll project a line, construction line towards this part. Now, from our diagram also, you find out that this portion here, from here to here, is what, 56 millimeter, reaching the midpoint of this small circle. And then we should measure 32 millimeter so that we can bisect this horizontal line to get the midpoint of this. So that's what we'll do now. So we'll come to the top and we'll measure 32 millimeter, put a point over here. Then we'll project the line downward with our set square. Project it just a little, just to also find the where it hits. So just a little this way. Now we've succeeded in getting this point. So from there you find out that there's a radius 6 millimeter here, which we have already gotten with our compass. So place it at this point here, then we'll draw a cycle. We've gotten this part. Now we've gotten this part here. So from our diagram, it says the distance between this point to this point is what, 6 millimeter. So same line, just measure 6 millimeter from this midpoint here to this side. They say 6 millimeter. So measure 6 millimeter. Can erase this part a little. Then we'll project that point downward such that it will hit our horizontal line over here. Now, looking at the diagram, we find out that this midpoint here of this line here, it says 36 millimeter from our midpoint, from our center line, our horizontal center line. So we take 36 millimeter. Then we'll put a point. Now, at this point over here, we indicate it the center line. Now the source should open to a radius of 13 millimeter. So take a meter and measure 13 millimeter. We'll place it at this point here and then we'll draw a circle. This way. Now the next thing we'll do is that there's a cycle joining this path over here with 89 millimeters radius, and when cycle touches each other externally, you add. So it's touching this point externally to this cycle, touching it externally to this other cycle. So we'll add 13 millimeter plus 89 millimeter. When we add it, 13 plus 89, it will give me 102 millimeter. So we'll take that same radius, I will place it at this point. Let me call this point A2, call this point over here point A1. So we'll place it at point A2 here, and then we'll scribe our arc this spot. Now also we add, since it's touching this side externally, we add 89 millimeters radius plus 22 millimeters radius. Now when we add that up, 89 millimeter with 22 millimeters radius, it will give us 111 millimeter. So we'll pick 111 from our rule, and then we'll place it at point A1 over here from this point, and we're taking it from here. So scribe the arc. Now you discover that it intersected at this point, so you open your compass to 89 millimeters radius this way, 9 millimeters radius. Then you place your pin, your compass here, and then you join the arc together. Now we've succeeded in getting this. So the next thing we'll do is that you observe from this point over here, this line here, see to this point here is 70 millimeter. So we'll measure 70 millimeter. So we'll put the point here at 70 millimeter. So we'll project that line downward this way. Now you observe that from our diagram 70 here, we want to get this radius over here. There's a cycle over here, and then the height that bisected this line was 44 millimeter. So measure 44 millimeter upward, and then we'll put a point. So automatically this is the point which we are looking for. So I can erase this. So let me just put a line at the top. So I'll be using it for scaling. Now you understand it better now. So from here to here was actually our 70 millimeter. Then we wanted to get this cycle here, which is radius 19 millimeter. So the height that bisected this point here is 44 millimeter. So we've gotten 44 millimeter. Now using our meter rule, we'll open our compass to radius 19 millimeter. So measure from our rule 19 millimeter, put it at this point over here, and then we'll draw a cycle this way. So I'll call this point here point B2, and then I'll call this smaller cycle point here point B1. Then the next thing is that there's a cycle here touching this radius 19 externally and then touches this radius 6 here internally. So we said 19 plus radius 70, because the radius touching the arc touching here is 76. We say 19 plus 76 as radius. It will give me 95 millimeter. So from my meter rule, I'll take 95 millimeter. Now place it at point B1. I'll strike an arc. I'll scribe an arc this way. And then remember that this circle here is touching this smaller circle, which radius is 6 millimeter internally. So you minus 6 from 76, which will give me 70 as 70 millimeters radius. So I'll take 70 millimeter, place it at point B1 over here. Then I'll bisect my arc. Now remember we said that this is touching externally, so added 76 millimeter and the radius 19 millimeter, which gave us 95 millimeter. So we'll place our pin at B1, then we'll bisect our arc over here. Now using this point of intersection, we'll open our compass to 76 millimeters radius this way. So open our compass to 76 millimeter and place it at their point of intersection. Then we'll draw an arc this way. Now the next thing we'll do is that from this line here, we'll project this midpoint, this line here, to center line to a reasonable part to this side. So now we know that the distance between here to this point here is 67 millimeter. So let me just draw the line so that I can be scaling my. So I'll measure 67 millimeter. Then I'll put a point over here, and then I'll project that point vertically to hit my center line, my major horizontal center line here. Now you observe that this point here hits at the point at which from this small circle here is coming over here and hit this point here. So let me call this point here point C2. Now from point C2, you observe that there's a radius from point C2 over here, which is 29 millimeter radius. So pick 29 millimeter radius from our rule. So pick it this way. We've gotten that. So place it at point C2 over here, and then we'll draw an arc this way. Now you observe that there is an arc joining this circle here and this circle here externally. So when circle touch each other externally over here, you add. So we're adding 76 millimeter plus 13 millimeter. Now that will give me 89, because from C2 my radius here was 29. So I'll add 29 plus 76 millimeter, which will give me 105. So I'll pick 105 from my rule. 105 from my rule. Which I've done. So from point C2, I'll scribe an arc. Also, I'll add 76 plus 6 millimeter, which will give me 76 plus 6, which will give me 82 millimeter as radius. So I will open to 82 millimeter as radius. Then I'll place it back to this point here, and then I'll bisect my arc. Now at that point they intersect over here. You open your compass to 76 millimeters radius. Then you place it at their point of intersection. Then you join them with an arc over here. Then you can erase this portion a little. Now the next thing we'll do is that from this C2 downward, we'll have the distance which they gave us as 6 millimeter. So we'll pick 6 millimeter with our rule, put a point, and then using our T-square, we'll indicate it with the center line over here. Now, then let me call this D1. Now from point D1, I'll open my radius to 13 millimeter, my compass to 13 millimeter, this way, and then we'll place it at point D1. Then we'll draw our cycle over here. Now the next thing we'll do is that I said from this point here to this point is 29 millimeter. So we'll measure 29 millimeter to our left, and I'll put the point right. Then I'll project this point upward to hit my horizontal center line over here. Now you'll discover that this point at which it meets here, the so should open a radius of 16 millimeter. So we'll measure 16 millimeter here. So place it at this point here, and then we'll draw our cycle with radius 16. And then I'll call this point here point D2. Now next thing we'll do, when cycle touch each other internally, we'll minus. So there's an arc here, a cycle here, touching these two cycles internally. So we'll minus 16 millimeter from 57 millimeter. So when we minus 16 from 57 millimeter, we'll get 41 millimeter. So we'll take 41 millimeter from our meter rule using our compass. Then we'll place it at point D2. Then we'll scribe an arc this way. Then also similarly, we'll minus 13 millimeter from 57 millimeter. Now when we minus 13 from 57 millimeter, we'll get 44 millimeters as radius. So place 44 millimeters radius. Yeah. Then we'll put it at point D1. Then we'll cut this arc here and then intersect at this point. Using this point to open our radius to 57 millimeter. Open it to 57 millimeter. So we've taken our 57 millimeter as radius. So at the point at which they intersect, then we'll draw an arc this way. So we can erase a little bit of this portion so that our diagram will be clear. Then the next thing we'll do is that there's a cycle touching these two circles here externally. So externally we add, so we'll add 16 plus 44 millimeter radius. So when we add 44 millimeter with 16 millimeter radius, that will give us 60 millimeter. So from our rule, we pick 60 millimeter, and then we'll place it at point D2. Then we'll scribe an arc. Also, we'll add 44 millimeter with 13 millimeter as radius. 44 plus 13, that will give us 57 millimeter. Open to a radius of 57. Then we'll place it at point D1. Then we'll bisect the arc. And then the point at which they intersect here, we use radius 44 millimeter. Then we'll place it at this point of intersection. Then we'll draw an arc touching both circles. So succeeded in getting that portion. We'll raise this side a little. Construction line. Now the next thing we'll do is that from this point here, you can see from this point to this point, they say 79 millimeter. So all we need to do, take our rule, and then we'll measure 79 millimeter, then put the point. So we'll project our point to hit our horizontal center line with a center line. So we'll do it this way. Nice. So we've gotten that. So now from this point over here to this point, you can see from our diagram here. Now from this point here to this point, we find out that from our center line, which is this, to this point here is 25 millimeter, so that it could cut this point here. So measure 25 millimeter from here to this portion here. Then we'll put the point, which is this 25 millimeter. Then we open our, at that point of 25 millimeter, we indicate with the center line. Now we open our compass to radius 19 millimeter. So radius 19 millimeter at this point here. Construct a cycle this way. Then there's a cycle touching this part and this other cycle externally. So we'll add 19 plus 32 millimeter. So when we add 19 plus 32 millimeter to give me 51 millimeter, so I'll pick my compass, I'll pick 51 millimeter. Then I'll place it at this point here, and then I'll scribe an arc. Similarly, I'll do same thing here. I'll say 32 millimeter. This is 32 millimeter plus touches this radius here, which is 29 millimeter. That will give me 61 millimeter as radius. So I'll open to 61 millimeter. Then I'll place it over here at point C2 here. You can see this is where I'm placing it. Then you bisect your arc. Now with this point of intersection, so with the point of their intersection here, you open to radius 32 millimeter, and then you place it at their point of intersection. Then you join with an arc over here this way. And now the next thing we'll do is that from our diagram here, at this point we'll project a line upward this way. Yes, this way. And then remember that this is our center line, our major center line. Now we are told that from our center line upward is 13 millimeter. So we'll measure 13 millimeter upward. Then we'll place our point. Now that 13 millimeter will rule a straight line this way. Now the diagram said that from this point to this point here is 25 millimeter. So just take from here to this portion here 25 millimeter. So from this 25 millimeter we are free to make an outline, free to make it an outline over there, and you can see it. So from this 25 millimeter we'll project a line downward such that that line, because of this distance here is 6 millimeter, will measure 6 millimeter. Look at it now. I'll project this line downward. Now at this point here, this distance here is 6 millimeter, so we'll take 6 millimeter with our rule. 6 millimeter with our rule. Now then we'll outline this 6 millimeter such that it will hit this line we projected downward. Now you see it has hit this point here. You get it? So now we can now outline this portion over here. Now the next thing we'll do is that we'll observe from, we'll go back to our top and we'll pick from this distance here to this point. They say 13 millimeter, so we'll pick 13 millimeter with our rule. 13 millimeter, we'll put the point here. Now using our set square, we'll project that line, the point, such that it will hit this point here. And wherever it hits, put a mark. This way it hits, so we erase this portion over here. Now we've done that. So now we will measure 13 millimeter from here to here, which we've done that, and then we projected the line such a way that it will hit this circumference of this circle. Then we'll stop, we'll mark it. Then now they say there's a radius between this point here. Let me call this point X, and then this portion of this place, let me call this point Y. Now there is a radius there which is 25 millimeter. Look at it, which is 25 millimeter. So we'll pick 25 millimeter with our rule, and then we'll place it at point X here. We'll scribe an arc. Place it also at point Y. We'll scribe another arc. Still using same radius. We'll place it at the point of the intersection, and then we'll join the arc with the 25 radius. Now also we'll come to this portion here. Now I want to do this portion, but first they said from this diagram, say 3 stud of diameter equally spaced on a 20 PCD, the pitch cycle diameter. So now we've gotten this point here. So now we'll find out that from the midpoint here to this line here, which is touching this our point here, is 21 millimeter. So all what we need to do, we'll come over here and we'll measure 21 millimeter. Then we'll put a point. Then we'll indicate it with a center line. Now if you check from this center line to this other center line here is 21 millimeter. Now at this point here, let me call this point 0. We'll open our PCD, pitch cycle diameter, which is 20 millimeter. We'll open it. It's a diameter, so we'll change it. We'll reduce it by 2, divide by 2, sorry. The diameter 20, radius should be 10. So take 10 millimeter as radius. At point 0, we draw our pitch cycle diameter, PCD. indicating it with a broken line. So we've got that done. So the next thing is that at this point here, you find out that it took place at 15 degree to my left here. You see it's displayed on the screen, and then also 15 sorry 30 degree to my left, 30 degree to my right, 30 degree also to my right. Now where the now we find out that our stud of diameter of diameter 12, so our radius is 6 millimeters radius, 6 millimeters radius. So I'll pick 6 millimeters radius. So now where it hits the pitch cycle diameter here, I'll draw my first cycle. This way, and then the second one too. I'll draw the second cycle. This way. Now the third cycle where it hits here at this point here, I'll draw my third cycle. Now when you do this, you see that they are equally spaced, three stud equally spaced. They are spaced on a pitch cycle diameter of 20 millimeter. Now the next thing we'll do is that we find out that there's a line here which the height is 22 millimeter. So all we need to do is just come over to this of our vertical line here. I'm using this. I'll pick 22 millimeter here, put a point. Now at this point at this place that I put my point, I'll draw a straight line over here, which I've gotten this portion. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that now you find out that from this part here to look at it from this part here to this part is 32 millimeters. So I'll just take my rule and then I'll pick 32 millimeter to my right. It's 32 millimeter, and then I will indicate it with an outline touching the circumference of my here of this circle. Now also we note that we can just draw a straight line first, partial straight line here like this downward. Now we know that from the top of my blade downward is 108. I know it's not showing, but you can see it on the screen over there is 108 millimeter. So measure 108 millimeter. This is 108 millimeter. Then we'll put a point here. Then we'll draw an outline touching this portion of over here. Now we've succeeded in getting the blade of our tenor saw handle. So remember that this blade was broken. It's a broken blade. So we just indicate with a straight line over here. This way, so you can erase all this other part that outside here. So you indicate it with a what? With the symbol that this tenor saw handle is broken over here. So thank you for watching, and also don't forget there's the last portion over here which we've not done. Now follow me as we do that. You find out that there's a radius here touching this circle, what? Externally. So you add 38 millimeter plus 6. That will give you 44 millimeters radius. So I'll pick for my rule, I'll pick 44 millimeter. and I'll place it at this point here, which I label point B1. I'll scribe my arc. Also, you find out that this arc here touches the circle. This one here touches it what internally. So you subtract 13 from 38. So you say 38 minus 13, which will give me 25 millimeter. So with my ruler open to 25 millimeter. Now I'm placing it at this point here, call this point A1 since it's already labeled A1. So I'll bisect it over here. Now you open your compass since it's 38 millimeter radius over here like this, 38. So now you put it at their point of intersection. Make sure you get it well. So you place, and then you are done. Thank you for watching. I still remain JC Engineering and Technical Drawing. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and then subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day ahead.